Everybody, welcome to the first meeting of the ABC and Gaming Subcommittee. I want to thank the members of the subcommittee and our council ahead of time for all the important work they will be doing this session, and thank Chairman Bullough for entrusting me with leading this subcommittee again. This is not really the first. This is the first one with Bill, but I'm Paul Krizak, and I am pleased to be your subcommittee chairman again. I will go through the docket here really quickly, just so you know what we're going to hear first. The goal here is to go to Delegate Martinez's bill, HB 195, and then Delegate Ballard, HB 307, and then we are going to go to my HB 522, and then HB 526, and then we're going to go a little bit out of order. What you see here, we're going to go to Delegate Left, which is 688, and then Delegate Batten's 1050, and then we're going to go to my HB 1349, and all of the then Delegate Ballard's 559, Williams is 1298, Carr's 1117, and 1118 will all be heard together. And I want to be clear about, the priority of this subcommittee is, and always has been, combating substance abuse and problem gambling and keeping people safe across the Commonwealth. The Senate ABC and Cannabis subcommittees are under rehabilitation and social services, and I plan to uphold the same spirit here. Gambling addiction is the deadliest of all addictions. We'll be handling gambling bills next week. Their suicide rate is up to 20%. Thousands of people die in Virginia each year from alcohol-related causes, liver disease, suicide, car crashes caused by intoxicated drivers that took the lives of 230 Virginians last year alone. So when we're addressing these alcohol bills, and this week and next week when we're addressing those gaming bills, I want everybody on this committee to keep in mind that promoting responsible drinking, especially today, is one of the best tools we have to combat problem drinking. Our duty is to keep Virginians safe and happy, but safety is the #1 priority. So we'll try to do that in as much as possible. So Delegate Martinez, HB 195, please present your bill. And I understand we have a substitute. Will the council provide the substitute, and we need a motion to accept the substitute. Do you have a motion? It's moved. Do I have a second? And seconded. All those in favor of the substitute, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The substitute is before us. And council, can you go over what the substitute does, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The substitute in the section that deals with sports betting permittees, it provides some additional language that allows for a carve-out specifically for any casino operator that also would hold a sports betting permit. And my understanding right now is that there is one casino operator in the Commonwealth that has casino in its actual entity name that also holds a sports betting permit. So there is a new subsection B that explains that anyone who has a sports betting permit and is also a casino and has met certain requirements set by the board would not run afoul of these provisions. And then lastly, there is a second enactment clause at the end of the substitute that would essentially grandfather in any entity that was issued a sports betting permit by the director of the Virginia Lottery on or before July 1st, 2024. So if they have the term casino in their name and they received a sports betting permit before July 1st, 2024, then they would not be in violation of that code section.
Thank you, council. Delegate.
Thank you again for hearing the bill with the amendment. It the problem is that private individuals and businesses are using the term casino to describe their activities without getting a permit. And it's more of a consumer protection to allow people to know when they're walking into a casino, they're walking into a casino that has filed a permit and done all the activities that are part of that permit.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Delegate. Do we, it's on LIS, right? You can't pull it up. We're having difficulty pulling it up. Maybe the general public is too. Do we have a copy we can pass around back here, Council? And while we're doing that, I just want to, so to clarify, it sounds like what you're doing, it's a consumer protection bill, making sure that somebody goes into a building that says casino. It's really one of the 4 casinos that we've permitted. Well, actually, there's a 5th one perhaps on the way. We'll be talking about that next week. But yeah, that makes sense to me. We'll just check. And then the reason for the amendment is to grandfather those folks who are already using the word casino, and those are the sports betting situation there. But everybody would have to play by the same rules now. Thank you, Delegate. I'm going to give everybody a minute here. Okay, do we have any questions for the patron? Do we have any comments from the committee members? Anybody in the audience? For or against? Anybody online? For or against? Okay, this committee operates by motion. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, move to report the substitute and refer to the Committee on Courts.
Okay, we have a motion to report and refer to courts. All those, then we have a second? Second. Okay, we need to, the clerk will open the rolls. The clerk will close the roll. The bill reports and it's going to the Courts of Justice on a vote of 8-0. Thank you, Delegate. Congratulations.
Thank you, and thank you to the committee.
All right, Delegate Ballard, HB 307.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate.
There is an amendment.
Do I have a motion to move the amendment? So moved. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Nay? Okay, the ayes have it. The amendment is before us. Thank you, Delegate. Please present the bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. I have House Bill 307, which simply exempts from the licensure requirement any person who wishes to make distilled spirits at his or her home. Of course, that person must be 21 years of age or older, and the bill limits how much alcohol may be distilled. To be clear, this bill does not authorize the sale of such homemade spirits. It is personal consumption only, and what the amendment does is it limits to 5 gallons. So candidly, Mr. Chairman, after filing the bill and speaking with folks within the industry and my friends at the ABC, I've come to understand that 50 gallons per person or 100 gallons per household, as the old bill allowed, was quite a lot of liquor. So we made the amendment to reduce it down to 5 gallons, which I think makes more sense. Now, Mr. Chairman, I consider myself a realist, so I think I know where this bill might be headed. That said, I've been thinking about what I could say to this esteemed committee to convince you that this makes sense for Virginian and all of Virginia. So, number one, parity and equality. So in Virginia, beer and wine connoisseurs are allowed to make their own alcohol for personal consumption. So why are distilled spirit connoisseurs being discriminated against for not allowing them to do the same? If we can make beer and wine at home, why not distilled spirits? Number two, Mr. Chairman, taxation. There is a general understanding that the current law restricting the distillation of spirits is tied to taxation of spirit sales. This belief goes way back to early Virginia and later when Franklin County was recognized as the moonshine capital of the world. Since this bill allows for spirit production for personal consumption only, taxation of sales is not even applicable or an issue to consider. Number 3, Mr. Chairman, legality at the federal level. So I've heard people say, and opponents will argue, that home distillation is illegal at the federal level, and that's true. Well, marijuana is also illegal at the federal level, yet Virginia legalized home growing and personal consumption of the devil's lettuce. I'm glad you all got that. In fact, retail marijuana sales is one of the major issues before the General Assembly this very year. So if Virginians can grow and smoke marijuana at home, why can't Virginians distill spirits at home? Other states already allow the distillation of spirits at home by using various exemptions in their code, such as this one. For example, great state of Alaska, Arizona, Maine, Mass, Missouri, Ohio, and Rhode Island are all allow small home distillation, even though it is prohibited at the federal level. The great state of Iowa has no laws about home distillation, so it's not even illegal in the Hawkeye State. Number 4, Mr. Chairman, opponents will also argue that distilling spirits at home is dangerous, and you mentioned that in your opening comments, Mr. Chairman. That's one of the goals of this subcommittee. First, gone are the days of using improper equipment to distill spirits. People just don't do it out of the old radiators anymore. And I passed around 2 handouts where you can buy from reputable places like Amazon a home still, 5 gallons or 6 gallons for a few $100. They're very safe, very easy to use. Secondly, Mr. Chairman, storing gasoline in a hot and tightly enclosed garage is dangerous. Yet we're not talking about outlawing gasoline in Virginia, although some may consider improperly distilled moonshine very akin to gasoline. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the potential revenue growth for Virginia. Home distillation can lead to full-scale spirit production within a licensed distillery. Much like small craft breweries, small craft distilleries will be brought into operation by people willing to jump into the business and market of craft spirits. So allowing these individuals to learn the craft of distilling, to hone their skills at home, creates opportunities for them to move beyond being a home hobby for personal consumption. Finally, Mr. Chairman, 5 gallons is a very small quantity. For demonstrative purposes only, I brought in my ABC bag, as a nod to my friends from the ABC, a 5-gallon, a quart jar that would commonly be used to capture and store home spirit distillation. So again, this is 1 quart. Obviously 4 quarts in a gallon by extension. Only 20 of these could be made per year under my bill. A small and unassuming quantity indeed, Mr. Chairman. Now, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, if these common sense points did not move you to report this bill, then I invite you to take a little sip of my demonstrative evidence to encourage you to act favorably upon this bill. But in full disclosure, Mr. Chairman, this is water only. Happy to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the patron? I have a lot to say on this. I don't want to be the only one up here. I do want to remind the committee that it was just, I believe, last year, or maybe the year before, where we killed a bill that just wanted to allow somebody to have a distillery set up to distill water. Which is actually what you have there today. That is not allowed either. You can't set up we've made that clear. So this is quite a jump. And I also say that I know that beer is allowed to be brewed at home brewed, but it's 5 gallons for beer, which is not the same as 5 gallons of your moonshine. You know, it's a lot.
It's not mine, Mr. Chairman.
You know what I'm saying? So I think we all have to be very cognizant of that and aware. This would be a big change in the way Virginia does business. And I do appreciate all of your handouts here. It almost looks like something from you know, I don't know. It looks like what you might see out in the old days out in the country at night. Why is that why they call it moonshine? Because it's brewed at night under the cover of darkness. Yeah. But anyway, are we sure we don't have any questions? There's got to be some good questions for the. Okay, Delegate Knight.
Mr. Chairman, I sat here and I listened very intently to you, sir, and I'd like to paraphrase what you said. And what you said was we need to look out for the health, safety, and welfare of the people in this committee. And I can think of nothing better than somebody not drinking and driving, just manufacturing this in his own living room and sitting there right there in his bathrobe and drinking it, and he doesn't have to get on the road.
Thank you, Delegate Knight, for that.
What better endorsement, Mr. Chairman?
that was. Do we want to do, is anybody in the audience, do we have anybody in the audience who wants to testify in support of this great idea? Do we have anybody in the audience who wants to testify against this? And then I'd like to hear maybe from ABC as well. Yeah. Mr.
Chairman, I don't want to do either.
Okay, just come up and
I apologize. I don't want to speak to or against the bill. We have no problem with the bill, but I think your point is very relevant about a drink is not a drink. 5 gallons of beer do not equate to 5 gallons of spirits. And so when the gentleman brought that up, I just wanted to make sure, particularly because there are so many new members to this committee, a drink is not a drink, and there's the difference in how beer is regulated versus how spirits are regulated, because spirits are higher ABV and therefore higher risk public safety. So I want to do no harm to the bill and speak, but I think when he brought up the equivalency argument, I felt compelled to come here and use this as an educational opportunity for some of the newer members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Thank you very much. And I think that really is the crux of it, is the alcohol by volume. I mean, what is what proof would be yours would be probably 200 proof, right? I mean, it sounds like, no, but it sounds, I mean, it could be quite deadly. And you know, that is something that we have to consider too. There are people, I've read, there's been some home distilling going on in countries like Kenya, where many people have been poisoned by the things that were added to the alcohol. So I think on a public safety thing, I'm very, very reticent to support this. And I understand what you're talking about, and it sounds okay, you know, to the people that are going to do it, but I think it's a big leap, and I'm a little concerned. But I really want to let the committee ask if there's anybody have any other concerns. Well, do we have a motion?
I'll move to report.
Okay, we have a motion as amended. We have a motion to report as amended. Do I have a second? All right. Do we have a substitute motion? All right. We've got a motion to report the bill as amended before us. Will the clerk please open the roll? The clerk will close the roll. The motion fails by a vote of 5-3. I think we need to work a little bit harder on this one, maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next session. Thank you, Delegate.
I appreciate your time and your kindness to me in discussing this.
You bet. Thank you. All right, we're going to go to my bill, HB 522, and I'm just going to hand the gavel over to my vice chairman here. Chairman of Appropriations is going to be acting as chair, Delegate Torian.
Okay, Chairman Creaside, please. We're hearing bill number HB 522.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill empowers the Board of Directors of ABC to modernize its online advertising regulations, including allowing manufacturers to help consumers locate products In 2022, ABC conducted their regular statutorily mandated review and investigated the possibility of online advertising regulations, but they lacked the statutory authority to implement those regulations and to work with stakeholders to address the online market. This bill will grant them the authority in time for their next review, and I think I have some people here that are willing to testify in support of this if they would come forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Ken Hutchison here today on behalf of Anheuser-Busch. Appreciate the patron carrying the bill for a broad array of stakeholders, and thank you for your time.
Delegate Knight. It's been moved and seconded that we report HB 522. Members, please cast your vote. Clerk can close the roll, please. Bill reports 7-0. Mr. Chairman.
We're going to do the next one. It's going to be.
Okay, Chairman Creasack.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, HB 526, it has nothing to do with alcohol, nor does it have anything to do with gambling. This is also under this subcommittee's purview. It's around charitable, the contributions, the solicitation, Virginia Solicitation of Contributions Act. As many of you probably know, if you want to fundraise in Virginia, you need to go to VDAX and apply under this Virginia Solicitation Contributions Act, and you have to pay registration fees depending on your size of your charity and how much money you're fundraising. Those numbers have not changed. The fees, this deals with the fees. They haven't changed since 1995, and they've become a bit of a burden on a number of Virginia charities, especially the smaller ones. We have something like, let me see, we've got 11,279 charities as of 2022 that have registered. You can see VDAX is a very busy agency handling all of those registrations. And the fees are required by statute to be used to finance the administration and operation of the Act, but they've created a budget surplus that can't be really directed elsewhere because of the way the code reads. So what this bill would do is cut the fees, reduce them by 41%, and removes that burden on the charities. And I think I don't think there's anybody here to speak for it. It's just a very simple bill just to save money for charities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Knight.
So, Delegate Creasack, that makes us revenue neutral on this situation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that would make us revenue neutral.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Committee operates by motion. It's been moved and seconded that we report HB 526. Members, please cast your vote. Clerk can close the roll. HB 526 reports 8-0. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, now we are going to go to delegate left, which is HB 688. You can present from here back here on the, if you'd like.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 688. It's a pretty straightforward bill, and I think the summary adequately describes it, so I'll just read that for purposes of my presentation. This bill repeals the July 1st, 2024 sunset on provisions that allow distillers that have been appointed as agents of the Board of Directors of the Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority, mixed beverage restaurant licensees, and limited mixed beverage restaurant licensees to sell mixed beverages for off-premise consumption, and farm winery licensees to sell pre-mixed wine for off-premises consumption. The bill also repeals, effective July 1, 2026, 2 years from now, third-party deliveries, and then asks the authority to convene a work group to review third-party delivery licenses and report its findings and recommendations to the respective chairs of general laws, the Senate and House. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Lefwich. Do we have any questions for the delegate? Do we have anybody in the audience who wants to speak in favor? Please come down.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. I'm Tom Lisk. I am an attorney representing the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association. We're part of a stakeholder group that's been working on this legislation. And while we think that certainly the ability for restaurants to be able to deliver drinks to go, cocktails, beer, wine, has been very helpful to the restaurant industry, particularly during the COVID recovery period. We've seen that restaurants have been able to do this responsibly. As I think many of you are aware, beer and wine to go actually was made permanent by the General Assembly a couple of years ago. This would just allow cocktails to go to become permanent as well. But having a 2-year sunset on the ability of third-party delivery companies, such as DoorDash, Uber Eats, and others, to continue delivery, because ABC has seen not the ideal level of compliance by the third-party delivery services that they've seen by the actual restaurants, the retail licensees. So we think this is a reasonable approach to see if we can get the third-party delivery licensees in line over the next 2 years and study that and report back to the General Assembly while letting the restaurant industry to continue the selling of drinks to go to their customers. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I think there are others here to testify in favor.
Mr. Lisk, before you go, I have a quick question. How many states, do you know how many states have done this? Have the cocktails to go? And just...
I think it's 22 or 23 have made it permanent. Others are still in the sunset stage. So it's more than 22 that have allowed for it. But of those who allowed for it during COVID, 22 have made it permanent.
Thank you, Mr. Lisk. Before you start, come on up. But I just want to make it clear what this does is that it's bifurcated. So those folks, we have a sunset, a 2-year sunset, which comes due this year. So if we don't pass this bill, then cocktails to go will stop. If we pass, and what this bill doesn't do is it doesn't remove the it puts a new 2-year sunset on half of the, if you will, half of the, well, I don't know if it's half of the deliveries, but it's those deliveries that are made by third parties. It removes the sunset so that it becomes permanent for those deliveries that are made by the brick and mortar locations. So just to be clear for everybody in the committee, so you understand that. Not that the delegate didn't do a great job, but it's pretty important to understand that. And the other thing I think we need to emphasize is that the reason for that is because ABC did a study, if you will, to see they checked on some of the to-go folks to see how they were doing, and they had a 94% compliance rate with the restaurants, but they only had a 50% compliance rate with the third-party vendors, which is really not good. That means half the time you could have underage people drinking it. So, we need to, I think if we pass this bill, we need to really encourage ABC to look to do a better job or to continue to study this and to make sure that everybody is abiding by this and that the third parties do a better job. If they don't, I think we should come back next year and then we just shut it down for the third parties. But that's my opinion. But anyway, you can speak to that as you wish. And please identify yourself.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Ross Grogg on behalf of the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States. We worked with restaurant associations all over the country to help put these laws into place during the pandemic and continue to work with them here in Virginia and across the country to make them permanent where appropriate. So we do appreciate Delegate Lefwich putting this bifurcated method in. I think as you just sort of indicated, we hope to make this permanent for the restaurants. Without this bill, cocktails to go in its entirety will go away. And so we've participated in the stakeholder work group and will continue to do so over the next 2 years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Robert Melvin with the R Street Institute. We are a free market think tank that actually focuses a lot on alcohol policy, and we're one of the few that specializes it nationally. And I can tell you that, speaking to your question about how many states have done this, it's been 24 states, and Washington, D.C. have made it permanent. During the pandemic, we've saw as high as 38 states have enacted this and adopted it. And so, since that time, some of the states have let it lapse. Most of them are still, as Tom and other speakers allude to, are still in kind of that temporary sunset stage, if you will. And it's a lot of consumers have loved it. 78% of restaurant patrons are supportive of this. And in addition to that, restaurants have really taken advantage of it. And we encourage you to pass this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. You guys could come a little closer.
Hi, Susan Rowland on behalf of Access Point Public Affairs, representing Prince William Chamber of Commerce, and they're in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Cindy DeFranco with the Virginia Spirits Association. We as well support the bill. I think Mr. List said it best, and we remain committed to participating in any work group ABC holds on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Randy Pearson with Two Capitals Consulting here today on behalf of the Roanoke Chamber of Commerce. We're in strong support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Stacey Gordon with the Virginia Craft Brewers Guild, and we strongly support extending the ability for our craft beer breweries to do direct-to-consumer sales through third-party delivery. It was no thanks in small part to this ability that the Virginia craft beer industry was able to survive and thrive post and after, during the pandemic, and we hope that this could be made permanent in the future. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Nicole Brenner with Reed Smith on behalf of Uber Eats. We also participated in the stakeholder process this year. And I'll just add one thing on behalf of the third-party delivery companies. This is the second time you're extending the sunset. And so I think what we've seen is an increase in compliance by the third-party delivery companies compared to when we were first allowed to do this, since we haven't been doing it as long as the restaurants. And I'm confident that you'll see that again. And that's the reason that I think you heard from ABC that we are extending this for 2 more years, is so that we can continue to increase compliance.
Thank you, and that is very important. The other thing I'll mention is that ABC to check on the compliance, it's a lot more difficult for them to do it than to go into a restaurant and check IDs from people who are buying alcohol, or go to or at their own ABC stores. Obviously, this requires a chain of custody dealing with the actual request online to have the alcohol delivered to the home, through to the actual delivery making it to the house. So you can see that this is a bit of a regulatory burden on ABC, and I think we should appreciate the hard work that ABC does to make that happen. And they're going to have to. I think we're going to have to, Mr. Chairman, we may have to get some more resources for them upstairs in appropriations. But anyway, is there anybody else to talk about this, talk against this bill? Do we have anybody online? Do we have any questions? We have a motion to report.
Mr. Chair.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm not using my technology here. Delegate Price. Sorry, we'll just postpone that motion. Hold up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just, with regard to the last statement and what we've been talking about for the third party, we did hear in the briefing from ABC earlier, and then hearing it again, that there was lack of compliance, and then we're giving them 2 more years with a report coming next year. So my question really was, what was being done in order to get accurate information for the report so that we would know that it was getting better? And so if there was anyone that could answer that question a little bit more firmly about to maybe alleviate some uneasiness of giving 2 more years to something that we already have heard is at 50% compliance.
Thank you, Delegate Price. Is anybody here from ABC? Yeah, John. And I will say that the compliance was, and John, you can speak to this better than I can, but it was really not a scientific, testing. It was just 50 or so, and I asked you to continue to do that. How many? What's the compliance rate up to now?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, John Daniel, West Virginia, ABC. So we did not, I don't think we really did a robust, sophisticated data collection. And part of the reason for that was this was sort of a novelty in the Commonwealth, these third-party delivery entities. We know they adequately and appropriately deliver a whole host of products, alcohol a little bit different. So we've been trying to give the third-party people some flexibility as they go forward, because we're not, I don't think anybody's suggesting that it's a bad practice. I think we're just suggesting it's novel and that it does need a little bit more time to mature for them to, third parties to come into familiarity and compliance with rules for third-party delivery entities. And
Mr. Daniel, so if there was a big compliance problem, you would shut them down, correct? You don't have to wait for us for 2 more years, obviously, for the.
Well, if there was, Mr. Chairman, if there was significant compliance problems, we would, somebody would, bring a charge forward, and we would pursue that like we do all violations, which is an administrative hearing for opportunity for due process and so forth, and we would deal with it in that way.
So you're comfortable. ABC's comfortable in allowing them to continue to have the license for another 2 years.
Yes, I think from what we've heard from third-party people, I know they want to achieve a better rate of compliance. I know that as they become more familiar with licensing and criteria for getting that license for third-party delivery people, that they will be able to achieve a compliance rate that is markedly improved from what we see it as today. As to Delegate Price's question, I couldn't begin to tell you exactly how the technology and the data points and stuff that would be included in any kind of study, but I can tell you that we do have people that do that, and our BLA, Bureau of Law Enforcement, does it across the board for all sorts of other licensees. So an inadequate response, I think, but it's what I know as I stand here.
Delegate Price, his follow-up.
Yes, so then I'm not sure if you know or if someone from one of the third parties, but what is the training that the drivers go through in order to know how to best comply?
So there's training required for the third-party delivery entities. We do training free of charge for folks who have to meet a certain number of hours of training before they obtain the third-party license. My understanding is a lot of the larger third-party entities have their own in-house training for an array of people that changes fairly frequently, right? I mean, you might be Uber Eats one week and somebody else the next. But.
Delegate Siebold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm uncomfortable with this bill. As a mother of a 16-year-old who often orders Uber Eats when I'm down here in session, and who also has friends who are Uber Eats drivers, I'm just trying to understand how I guess maybe I need to ask a question to the Uber Eats representative, but I'm trying to understand how what the plan is, the implementation plan for the third-party delivery system will be. So I keep hearing that we're working to become compliant, but what is the plan? Because I just have a hard time visualizing that we can regulate a delivery service of alcohol.
So, Mr. Chair, Delegate Siebold, ABC, we do not have a position on this bill. I'm going to defer to your answer if I could, and maybe one of the third-party delivery people might be better positioned to give you a direct response to your question. Mr. Chair, if that's all right with the committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Daniel.
There you go.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Nicole Brenner with Reed Smith on behalf of Uber Eats. I think I can answer at least part of both of your questions, Mr. Chairman, Delegate Price, Delegate Siebold. One of the things that's not an apples to apples comparison between the third-party delivery companies and, say, a restaurant is a restaurant gets a violation when they give alcohol to someone who is underage. But the way that the app delivery service works, an Uber Eats or a DoorDash or whomever's driver would also be counted as a violation if they left alcohol at the door or didn't return it. And so it is a different delivery mechanism than the restaurant. So I'll just say that we're not comparing apples to apples on the compliance rates. I think Mr. Daniels can also tell you that we would like to work with ABC and have reached out in hopes of working with ABC on how our internal training compares with what ABC is doing. I think that we would like to work together on what that looks like. And there are some things that we would like to improve on the training that we think can improve compliance.
Yes, follow up, Delegate Siebel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I go into the ABC store, I don't anymore because I'm clearly over 21, but someone would go in and give their ID, they scan it, it connects with the database of the DMV, right? So do you have any sort of system in place that you do that when you deliver alcoholic beverages to?
Yeah, the statute in front of you has scanning of IDs. That's something that's already there.
So it's a mobile, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Delegate.
So is it a mobile version of what the ABC stores currently use?
I can't speak to what the ABC stores are using, and I think there was a pilot about them connecting with DMV, but I don't know that that's in place permanently. But yes, the legislation that's already the law right now, the statute, requires scanning IDs.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Nicole. All right. Do we have any further questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move to report.
We have a motion to report, and I'll second it. Do we have any, okay, substitute motion? All right, then the clerk will open the bill. Oh, open the rolls. Clerk will close the roll. The bill reports on a vote of 6-2. Thank you very much. And Delegate Lefwich, I think what we do know is that we need to monitor this, and we need ABC to really do some good compliance checks on this third-party to-go issue. But thank you very much. Our next bill is Delegate Batten. Is she here in the room? Oh, there she is. Come on, it's such a big room. Delegate Batten, HB 1050. Do we have any amendments or anything like that? No.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. There is an amendment that should be prepared for everyone.
Can let's move the amendment. Any motion to move the amendment? So moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the amendment is before us. Okay. Can you also just go over the amendment quickly?
I can describe the amendment quickly.
You can. Thank you. Before the
So
ice cream melts.
do you want me to describe the bill first and then the amendment?
Yeah, it's your bill. You go ahead, whatever you want.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just overview of the bill. This bill simply adds to the confectionery license language a definition and regulatory structure to allow for the sale of ice cream and frozen desserts that contain small amounts of alcohol. The genesis of this is I have two small businesses within my district. One makes ice cream, one is a distillery, and they decided it would be a nice idea to have a partnership, but there was actually no mechanism in place whereby they could sell that ice cream at the shop. We tried to work on this administratively, but as we looked back at this confectionery licensure language, it was from 2018, and it did in fact require legislation in order to be changed. So I want to thank the drafters of this bill because they worked very hard on it, and also ABC for providing input as well. So what this does is it crafts language that allows for limited on-premise consumption as well as carry-out options. It limits the alcohol content to 5%. Anything more than that would actually make the product, you wouldn't be able to freeze it, and less would be indiscernible flavor-wise. It's subject to all the current ABC laws in this section, and the language that was added here was at the recommendation or with I would say, assistance of ABC to clarify that when the product is carried off, so for example, you go into the ice cream shop and you buy, a small container of it, that container needs to be sealed with a tamper-proof device, and also needs to display the name of the licensee and be clearly marked with the phrase "contains alcoholic beverages." So this pretty much brings it into alignment if you were to go to a restaurant and you were to do a sort of a carry-out alcoholic beverage, which is something, of course, that we implemented sort of around the time of the pandemic. The amendments also clarify that this frozen dessert should not be known as a milkshake, and that was to address some of the concerns we had that people might take the package outside and start, eating out of it in the moment there. Obviously, there's nothing to, technically stop you from doing that, but the packaging itself will not support that as well. So I am happy to take any questions from the committee members, and I also have with me the ice cream shop owner who can get into all the details of making ice cream, if you need to know that.
I'm sorry, Delegate, what does the amendment do?
So the amendment simply adds the language that's recommended by ABC, specifying the type of container that you have to have it in when you are taking the ice cream product out of the store, and it also adds that a frozen dessert is not a milkshake in this case.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the patron? Do we have any, why don't you bring your ice cream store owner up? Thanks.
Kimarahu. Thank you all for having me here today. I'm kind of the kickstart of this legislation. So I own a small family shop in New Kent, and we produce our own ice cream. And one of the options that we've always looked at was possibly having alcohol in that ice cream, even in low percentages, because for us it's not financially beneficial, nor is it truly, I can't get a scientific freezer to get it down to -70 to where it would have to be if you had large amounts in there. But we applied for the ABC permit. We went through all the preliminary processes. We did everything that we were supposed to do, and then when we got to the question of, well, what are you going to produce? And we applied for a confectionery permit, and they said cakes and candies. They said if you put the alcohol in the cakes and candies, it would be fine to be inside of your ice cream, but you couldn't actually flavor it with Chambord, or you couldn't flavor it with a vanilla whiskey or something like that to give it enough flavor to where it has some of that property to it, but just not enough to actually be anything that's more than what you would say an average beer. Even with the most generous samples, if you were to keep scooping them out, you're not going to get more than a 16 ounce at any ice cream shop anywhere. Outside of that, we tried all the other options. They had asked us if we could possibly serve food. And we were going, okay, well, if we serve food, that's going to be in violation of our lease. And it's putting in other things that we are not handled or not wanting to deal with. We're not wanting to serve food, even though ice cream itself has carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in it. It's still not considered a food by ABC law. So we just talked to Delegate Patton, and we said, hey, we'd like to try this, because nationally, this is a product that is viably available for a lot of states, and a lot of them don't even have regulation on it. We're more than happy and more than willing compliant to be within state law and to be regulated by the ABC. We think it's absolutely fine, and we've already applied for the permit. We've just been waiting on our status until this day. So if you have any questions for me, I can actually tell you about manufacture and production of ice cream, large scale or small scale if you wish, also with delivery methods, the whole deal.
Thank you. We should talk afterwards, because I'm a big ice cream aficionado. I could eat 2 ice creams at a time. A normal person can eat 1.
Mr. Chairman, I want to clarify. I forgot to share one of the amendments that I had that actually struck the language that would have allowed for a beer and wine license. So that would be striking. Hang on, let me make sure I have that. I don't know if the council has that language. Okay, do you know what line that's on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that would be striking in 2 different places in the bill, but the first place is at line 302 after the word consumption, the remainder of line 302 and all of lines 303, 304, and 305. So that strikes the language that also allows the granting of a license, or the person who gets a license under this subdivision, the confectionery license, they would be automatically authorized to obtain a license to sell and serve wine and beer for on-premises consumption or in closed containers for off-premises consumption. That's the language that is stricken by that amendment.
Thank you. Yes, we just wanted to
Delegate,
clarify that we're not trying to set up a beer and wine license in conjunction with the ice cream.
Council, can you let us know whether or not we've already accepted that amendment, or is this another amendment that we need to move?
Mr. Chairman, that's included in the original line amendments that are
Okay,
on.
we're okay. Thank you, Council. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Delegate Bat. Any questions? Okay, Delegate Knight.
Chairman Torrey and I, we've been on this committee a long time, and I know we remember, I don't know who else was on it, but remember when we had the Richmond Cupcake Shop that came here, and they wanted to put a small amount of alcohol in the cupcakes, which looks to me like a direct correlation with what you're trying to do, and we passed that. We had some conversation about it, and I don't know, that's 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we don't think they've had any problems, so just wanted to share that with the committee.
Thank you. I have a question for Council on that last amendment. With that language removed, would that change the, for example, if you're doing a beer flavored, God forbid, ice cream, I can't even imagine. I think ice cream's perfectly fine as it is, but maybe I'm an old fogey. But the beer with a, let's say you're getting beer flavored stuff or infused, would, you have to go through the beer wholesaler. Is that still in the language, or has that been taken out, Council?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Delegate. Did you have something you want to say?
No, I was just going to say that language was very specifically serving beer and wine.
Right, I understand, but you'd have to get beer and wine into your shop, right? Somebody's got to bring you the beer and the wine to put in your ice cream. This sounds very sticky, this whole beer and wine ice cream. I'm really concerned about. I think it's. I'm worried about mixing a place where children go for fun and to get ice cream with. I know it's going to have the, all of the containers and everything, but as soon as you go in there where the adult buys the alcoholic ice cream, and 5%. Remember, that's like a beer. That's a beer, and it's a strong beer. There's some beers that are lighter than that. Anyway, I'm a little nervous about it. We've had slushies come before us. We've had other kinds of things. It's clever. It's creative. I'll give you that. But I am not very sanguine about this. But I might be a minority of one here on the committee. Do we have any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, could Council answer
Delegate
the
Torian.
question about the?
Delegate Torian.
Just want to make sure you answered your question about the beer and wine part of it. That's okay.
Yeah, Council will let me know when she's ready. Delegate Torian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question to the store owner. Yes, sir. You made the comment that this would not be profitable to you.
In large amounts, so if I were to do, let's say I tried a 10% or a 15%. If you look at total volume, if you're doing volume for volume, which is how you create blended liquids to get to your appropriate level of alcohol percentage, if you go 10 to 15%, you're using a certain portion of a bottle, and it becomes very cost prohibitive to do it in a large amount. Not necessarily in a small amount, but in a larger amount, it becomes cost prohibitive because you're purchasing from the ABC the liquors and things like that in order to make these flavors. So as you increase that volume number, either your prices are going to be astronomical or it's just not worth it. 5% is great because you can get to -20 in a normal freezer, and it actually stays in a very stable form. I've created them. I don't sell them, but I have created one to see how long it would be shelf stable. So I've gotten right at about 8 months, and it still retains its true, mostly frozen form. And I say mostly frozen because it's not like a brick, like a piece of ice, but it has a scoopable quality to it. So putting large amounts in there and then using lower amounts. Lower amounts actually equates better for both business and for the customer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll just say one last thing, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. But are you, you're not a restaurant slash, tavern bar kind of operation. And when you start going down the road to selling alcohol, you got to deal with a different kind of clientele. And you're going to have to check IDs. You're going to have deal with people who are drunk and disorderly, things like that. Are you prepared for that kind of clientele? And you're going to maybe scare away some of your families when they know that you've got alcohol. I mean, some people maybe you may get a whole new clientele, but I can imagine a lot of families would avoid your ice cream store knowing that that's the store that has the alcohol.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, we have customers asking us about, whether they could get rum raisin, and we don't do artificial flavors in our shop. I can't do a true rum raisin without actually being able to use raisins that are soaked in rum, which is illegal at this point in order to sell to the public. There are other flavors out there. We're not looking to go and put up big neon signs that say, hey, this is an alcoholic ice cream spot. It's just giving options that are available. Because ice cream sales are over $19 billion for 2001 in the United States. A good portion of that depends on your ability to diversify your product in order to have a large contingent of individuals that come into your shops. We have families, we have adults. We're not themed one way or the other. We have what you would call more adult flavors because children would generally shy away from them, weird, odd flavors, all sorts of different things. We're simply looking at national trends, and national trends do have this all over the place. Virginia happens to be one that we do have some shops that do currently do that, but they also operate under a different license. So they're creating those. We're just being left out at the table at this point, being that we can apply and we don't necessarily fit into a category.
I understand. And I'm sure you would be, you would do well and you would be responsible, but of course you're not the only, ice cream store that will be out there. Okay, well, do we have any delegatorian has a comment or question?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion, please.
Delegatorian.
I move that we gently lay this on the table.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to gently lay this on the table. All those in favor?
I'll do a substitute.
We have a substitute motion. Delegate Knight.
Report the bill is amended. That's not a legal motion. Table has to go
Oh, yeah, you're right. Delegate Knight, that's not a legal motion. Table has to go first. You can't.
I was hoping I was going to catch you.
Yeah. I need an ice cream to perk me up a little bit. Maybe a coffee-infused ice cream might be good. But, all right, so the motion's before us. Will the clerk call the roll? The clerk will close the roll. So the bill has been laid on the table gently. I think the vote was 4-3 with a 1 abstention. And that's
Thank you,
probably.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you, Delegate. Okay, I'm going to have to ask the Vice Chairman to take over the gavel. Delegate Chairman Torian, please.
Chairman Cresack.
Okay, before you I have HB 1349, and I've got a bunch of copies of this bill, so you can, with edits as amended. Yeah, we need to, Mr. Chairman, we need to adopt a substitute.
Move the substitute.
All those in favor, please see the votes out of aye.
Aye.
Substitutes adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here's another copy. You guys can share that. It's a long bill. I didn't want to waste too much paper. So the idea here is what we have in front of us. Let me get. This is the ABC Performing Arts Mixed Beverage Performing Arts license. It's a new license. This seeks to create a uniform license category for mixed beverage performing arts facility licenses around the whole Commonwealth, regardless of their location, and with a standardized eligibility criteria for licensure. As you see, we have a number of bills after this that would all not need to. They would all be underneath. They would all fall under this category. If this bill passes, we can pass those all by for the day. So currently, localities have to be individually added to the code, and that's why you have all of these other bills. And there's, I think, a few more that haven't been docketed yet as well. And that house these performing arts venues and are therefore entitled to these licenses. There is no statewide version of the license, and several bills have been introduced, as you see, for Charlottesville, Floyd, Pulaski, Richmond, Virginia Beach. There's lots of good, it's going to be exciting, a lot of great venues coming down the pike. In 2020, our chairman of general laws, Chairman Bulova, passed a license reform bill legislation that really cleaned up the entire license process. Unfortunately, this one was one that did not get. I think it was just a lot to work on, and this one never, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So we need this 1349 would finish that effort and make this a new license, and then that way you would have you wouldn't have to, you would have an immediate bill, or you'd have immediate license within, ABC would take 30 days rather than wait a whole year to come back to the General Assembly and come to this subcommittee and see if we're going to pass it or not. So what this bill does is it says specifically any new performing arts venue will need to offer stationary, stadium, or similar seating for more than 500 persons. For those of you that are concerned that 500 is too, or that stadium seating, that stationary seating is too onerous, the similar seating, I think, gives a lot of flexibility to ABC when they're issuing these licenses. So you can see, for all of those that that have graduated from UVA like I did, in the end zone, we have the hill on the one side under the goalpost. That's seating, okay, under this bill. That would be what we call or similar seating, right? So if you've got a venue that's out in the that's like an amphitheater, and you've got rocks and big boulders, and people are sitting on the boulders, that would be considered similar seating. It just has to be more than 500 persons, and that would make you eligible for a performing arts venue ABC license. It also includes a grandfather clause allowing those venues, and I think there's about 5 or 6, like Jiffy Lube up in Manassas, up in your neck of the woods, Mr. Chairman, that currently hold these licenses or apply for them prior to December 31st. They would keep and renew, and they would be able to renew them. That would not be a problem. So this really, I hope that this can be the avenue for all of these other bills, and they should all be able to fall underneath this. And I think if there's anybody, ABC, John, do you want to just maybe add to that? I mean, what this does, obviously, the reason these venues want this is to save the $4,000 food requirement, basically, and you've got how many dozens of licenses already, and you've licensed some 20,000, around the Commonwealth. Tell us a little bit about how you envision this working.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, John Daniel with Virginia ABC. As I understand that overarching genesis here was we had 8 of these existing licenses that have been put on the books over the course of the last, decade perhaps. This year, I think we've seen, to this point, maybe 6 or 7 additional of these licenses. And so the number just increases. And these are people who have to come back to you, every winter to get approval for that license. So the concept, as I understand it, was to create a generic license where people, if they met the criteria, which are fairly simple, 500 seats and stadium seating and a couple of others, we would be able to issue that license in fairly short order if they met that criteria and not have to come back. Folks wouldn't have to come back here for for those licenses. So that's what I understand the bill does.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from members of the committee? Delegate Knight.
I've just got one for our attorney, because I'm not an attorney. On page 20, starting on line 528, you struck corporations and associations and put in persons, and in the, I couldn't find it in the front under the definitions category. We're sure that persons equates to persons and corporations and associations. I wouldn't want anyone to get caught up in it, you know.
Counsel.
Mr. Chair, Delegate Knight, yeah, that's covered. We have a general definition for person that applies throughout the code, and it will include those corporations, so we're good to go on that part.
Thank you. So while you're standing there, sir, the assumption that I'm gathering from you is that ABC is okay with this?
ABC does not have a position on this bill, but I can tell you I don't think it trespasses on public safety or the things that we heard Delegate Kriesik talk about at the onset of the meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments from the committee?
I'll move to report as substituted.
It's been moved and seconded that we report House Bill 1349 as a substitute. Please call the roll. Member discussion vote. HB 1349 reports 8-0. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Torian. Okay, so that makes our job a little easier now for the rest of the committee. And clerk can correct me if I have left out any other bills that are not under this mixed beverage performing arts license. What I would like to do is to have a motion that we lay all of these bills on the table unless one of the patrons really feels strongly and wants to get up and speak. They should all be covered underneath this new license that we just passed. And so I think it takes care of everybody that has a bill, and you are all invited to be co-patrons on this bill as well. Many of you already are. So is that? Do I see any? I see some good nodding over here on my left. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Delegate.
I have a motion.
All right, we have a motion.
I move that the following bills be laid on the table: HB 559, HB 1298, HB 1117, and HB 1118.
Second.
Thank you, Chairman Torian. We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. It's been moved and seconded. Do I hear any other? All right. The clerk will open the rolls. The clerk will close the roll. The four bills, HB 559, HB 1298, HB 1117, and HB 1118 have been laid on the table, and by a vote of 8-0. Clerk will close the roll. Thank you very much. And that handles this docket, and I'll see you next week where we'll be handling gaming bills.